Welcome to our first episode of our story, Michelle and Vin. That's not really our tagline, but it's our story. What we want to do is inspire other entrepreneur couples to really talk about like the wonderful life of entrepreneurship and relationship and how to succeed together, or at least what we think is succeeding. I think not killing each other is considered succeeding. So we are starting this. This is our first episode. We're going to come to you guys live once a week to be able to edit this or to show this to you guys unedited, real time, kind of what's going on in our lives. And hopefully this will be able to inspire you to keep going or build a legacy in whatever you are doing. So first and foremost, Vin, do you want to do a short introduction? And I say short because you like to talk a lot.
Wow, there's rules right out of the gate. So again, my name is Vin at My Story Vin of Texas. And again, this is a new show, but to a new format. It's not the first show that we've ever done. We've actually done quite a few different podcasts in the past. But we just decided to change things up a little bit and kind of give the perspective of what it's like to be in business as well as in a personal relationship. Because we realize that seems to be something that people are interested in, figuring out how to make it work with their spouse or how to make it work with a spouse that's not in the business and is just trying to figure out what's going on. So we're going to explore all things business, all things personal, and anything in between that we can think of along the way. So you guys stay tuned, stay dialed in, and we're going to be dropping lots of nuggets here.
Yeah, so until we actually get the audience going, which I hope this will start to get some followers and following, we're going to kind of free format it. I think we don't even really currently right now have an agenda put in place other than maybe an introduction of how we met and what the heck we do. If you follow me on my story, Michelle, then you'll know that it's all about real estate entrepreneurship and women in business. So I'll start off. I've been an entrepreneur for over 13 years. I've been in a couple of different type of business lines. I started in staffing, so headhunting and recruiting. And I started my entrepreneur journey out in Florida. So I'm originally born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, which now is where I reside the last 3.5 years. But prior to that, I was in Florida, and I was just always unemployable. I always felt that I was an entrepreneur, but I didn't know, like I was always scared and fearful back then to do it, but I took the leap of faith on myself and I started a staffing business, which was what I was doing in my W-2. Quickly after that, I had an opportunity to get into construction, and that was through staffing into the general contractor seat. So I would help large investors and hedge funds that were buying so many properties, 300 a month out in South Florida, and renovate them. I knew that was kind of my weird, awkwardly way to step into real estate investing. But I knew if I stepped into that would be something that would be great as far as hopefully as I become an investor. And then I moved back to Texas and became a real estate investor, also a business owner. We own a property management company. We own a marketing agency company, in which Vin pioneers and oversees that. And now I own a coaching program to teach others how to get into real estate without using their own money. So that's a little bit of an introduction for me. And Vin, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll introduce how we met.
Yeah, no problem. So I think parts of that are basically going to be very much in line just because we're in business together. So I'll go ahead and skip over that. So as you were talking, I actually realized that I've been in real estate since I was 8, as funny as that is. And the reason I say that is because my very first business was painting houses.
Oh.
So, it's a bit of a stretch. I get it. It's a bit of a stretch, but it involves a house. But, at 8 years old, I was painting houses for $20 a pop. I thought I was killing it back then. I'm like, all right, I'm going to paint this house, make $20. I can buy all the ice cream I want. little did I know, $20 isn't anything to paint a whole house, and including the messes that I was making. Again, I was 8 years old, but I appreciated the
I mean, it was a
opportunity.
long time ago. I mean, you just had a birthday yesterday, but that was like what?
I did.
1959 is when you started painting at 8? Just kidding.
No, I'm not that old. But it's funny, I hadn't connected that before. So I guess what I'm currently doing today has just been, I guess, in my blood for a long time. It's either been real estate and or marketing. And today we're technically doing both just because of technology that's out there and things that we're doing. But I had my first real business when I was 16 years old, and it was very much a brick and mortar entrepreneur. Had some business partners, but I was building show vehicles at that point. And it's crazy thinking about it now. You're thinking you're just wrenching, but we weren't a mechanic shop. We were a full-blown specialty shop that was building show vehicles, all the cars that you see at car shows, all the cars that you see in magazines. So it's looking back, it's crazy to think about, taking a $20,000 car and now it's worth over $100,000 just because of everything that's been done to it. Shortly after that, long story short, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, had to go get a job. And then that's when I quickly learned, very similar to you. I think that was my first, as I was younger, I was working at KB toy stores, for anybody that remembers those. But it was, part-time job. My first real job was probably late teens, early 20s. And I learned very early on, within 6 months is about all I could take, that I couldn't work for anybody else. It was driving me crazy being in a cubicle. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Like, I enjoyed, it was funny, I'd be willing to work 100 hours for myself, making nothing, as opposed to working 40 hours for somebody else and having a steady paycheck. And so that's honestly probably the last I remember having an actual job, when I was probably about 20 years old. So same thing. I wasn't employable, just the way that you said. It wasn't that I was getting fired. It was driving me bonkers being in a cubicle. And so, about the same time, I'm like, okay, well, real estate's going to be my retirement vehicle. Let me go get my real estate license. And just not knowing any better, I figured, well, if it has anything to do with properties, I must have a license. There's, when you don't have the right people around you, that's kind of where your mentality's at. And so did that, and started trying to do fix and flip in California, which is where I'm originally from. And not having the right guidance, the right information, the right mentors, I realized I was learning from the wrong people, the wrong information. It was all, well, you should do this, well, you should do that. But I'm like, okay, what experience do you have? Oh, well, I just tell people what to do. I don't actually do it. I'm like, it doesn't sound right to me. I'm like, how can you teach me if you don't know? And then, long story short, I did some buy and holds out of state. That didn't go well back in 07 and 08. Got kicked in the teeth pretty good. And I shied away from that. It took me years to even admit to myself, much less tell other people, that yes, I've lost real estate in the loss correction. But looking back now, it was very much a learning point on knowing when to recognize certain signs and see patterns. And then at that point, I found Masterminds. Late one night, I was actually, should have been asleep. An infomercial came on for fortune builders. For anybody that knows who they are, they're still around. And then that's when I learned about mentorships and pain, and learning off of somebody else's success, what somebody did in 10 years. If you're serious about what your future is going to look like, is to pay for the information and hack it. So what somebody else did in 10 years, I was able to do in less than 18 months. And from there, just learned about other mentorships, and that there are individual nut jobs like myself out there that are just the crazy one percenters, that are all about collaborating as opposed to tearing each other down, and wanting to help each other, and that are truly, genuinely interested in seeing you succeed. And then that really set me on a different path to where we are today. So from that point forward, I think a lot of what you said is very similar. And like I said, we're in business now, so I don't want to go and repeat all that all over again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that mentorships, it's so crazy because I keep saying 13 years. I think it's now 14. And I never knew for the first 8 years that there were masterminds out there. I remember the first one, which kind of gives us in the segue of how we met. But the first one I went to was Thrive. And I actually was, at that time, it was someone else that I was subleasing. I was a construction site. He was a wholesaler. And I was subleasing from their office. And I guess he just saw that I was like stuck all the time. At that time, I would always down my success. I would not, talk to my circle was just different. I always was like with the mentality back then. I want to know where I'm from and where my roots are, and I have to stay in this place, and I can't really talk about having $30,000 payroll weeks in construction or any of that. I didn't have guidance. And I remember one time him and his sister, they were going out to Vegas, and he says, I want you to come. And I was like, oh, cool. It's going to be like a weekend trip. Ended up being that it was Thrive. It was the best thing that ever happened.
Wait. So you were thinking, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So you were planning on going to Vegas to party is what you're saying.
Of course. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm getting invited to Vegas. It's going to be.
And then you walk in and you're like, why are you bringing me to this stuffy room?
Actually, I didn't even have the outfits for the room. I don't think I've ever told you this. I had like clubbing outfits. I mean, this was a while back. So clubbing outfits and wanting to go to, at that time, Excess and Dre's. I think they're still around and stuff, but it's not that far back. And then I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go buy more. I gotta go buy appropriate outfits because Jesse Itzler.
I gotta buy my Sunday outfit because I'm hooching it up here.
Jesse Itzler was on there. E.T. I remember E.T. And at that time, the girl from Molly. What is the one from Molly? The one that did the underground. Bloom is her last name. Anyway, those kind of people. Those are
some powerful people.
Oh yeah. So it was Thrive Connect, and I fell in love with it. But I remember it was like every other mastermind or a 3-day session. And at the end, they present you an opportunity to join their community. And at that time, I'm like $10,000. This is freaking crazy. It was pre-COVID. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay $10,000 for this. Like, I don't even know, but I want to be part of the group. So I promised myself and that I would never pass up an opportunity like that again when the next year came. And I remember working and really figuring out and started to, that's kind of paved my way of learning who, self-help books are. And there's other people in the crazy in the 1%er world of this. And I remember during COVID, I was able to actually sign up 2 memberships during that time. And so it's kind of segue us into how did we meet, right? So we met through, we have 2 different stories, and we don't have time to tell your story and my story. So we're just going to kind of put it together.
Wait a minute. How can you and I, talking about you and I, have 2 different versions of the same you and I?
Because you have a different version than I do. So it's always funny because the stories are always different. It's still kind of the same, but Vin is a very creative and illustrative individual to tell a story. And believe it or not, I'm very factual, analytical, to the point on kind of some of the things.
That almost sounded like a backhanded compliment.
Well, maybe one day we'll talk about that. As far as your story versus my story. Well, and this is what
all I gotta say is when I tell my story, especially the ladies in the room, they stop what they're doing and they make a circle because they want to hear my story.
Yeah, and that is true. I will say that. No, it's a good story. You just take a little longer to talk about it. So, hey guys, this is what happens when you, I'm sure this is what happens with your spouse as well. Put it in the comments if you guys ever have 2 different stories of how you met and the versions. I'm pretty interested in learning about that. But anyway, so we met through, I'm not going to go deep down into the story, but we met through a mastermind, a mutual person. So Vin was an alumni of Thrive Connect, and I was in it at the time. And we had someone that introduced us because Vin was moving over to Texas. I had just moved back to Texas. And that's how we, short and sweet, that's kind of how we met. Not kind of, that's how we met. And
So are you saying that we met because of real estate? That's what I just heard.
we did, because you were looking. I mean, at that time they thought I was a realtor, but you were looking for space. I was just getting into real estate. Like, I didn't know. And for the first year, you and I didn't do real estate together. So, and then fast forward to 2023, you and I have been working together on building what we're building now and learning a lot. And yeah, so real estate is our jam right now. And now we're still growing into learning about how to buy businesses. I'm learning how to become to coach. I've always mentored and coached others. It's just my consulting background that I've had for years. And now I just want to not only just get paid for it, but build a community so we can all work together. Because I think that the biggest thing for me is that now knowing these masterminds, now knowing communities, it's good to leverage those and be able to collaborate with like-minded people. And that's truly what I want to create this year. How about you? What are your goals for this year as far as creativity or?
So let me before I answer your question, let me comment on something, because I couldn't agree more in regards to community and bringing the right individuals together to the table. I know that you have your women empowerment, your women in real estate group, and I was lucky enough to be on that call yesterday with your community. And regardless of how long you've been in the game or how much experience you have, you're still always learning. And the reason I say that is we had, there was an individual, a young lady, I think she was from Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, and she was talking about government contracts. Well, that's something else that we've been dabbling in a little bit for like the last several months. And even during that call, I've been doing real estate for over 20 years. She said something, and I know that it piqued our interest both at the same time. We kind of just looked at each other during the Zoom and like, holy crap, like I hadn't thought about that angle. Like you get so, I don't want to say blinders, but you get so used to doing things a certain way that you don't look at things from a different point of view or with a different set of glasses. And I think that really is the strength and the beauty of having communities around you. Again, you and I know we're real big go-givers and trying to give back and pour into the right people. And when I emphasize the right people is because there's some people that you should pour into, and there's some people that it just doesn't go anywhere. And then you really got to analyze and really prioritize what is your time worth. But your group of ladies is an amazing group of people that are really just helping and collaborating. And I would love to see more of that. So again, that was just my 2 cents off of what you said. Now, to answer your question, what am I working on? I know that this we decided we're going to switch a little bit. So like I said before, I've always been really big in 2 sectors in my life for as long as I can think of. Real estate and marketing. I've actually had a marketing company in the past before for several years. My claim to fame is, I've had Warren Buffett write me a check for close to $1 million. If you guys don't know who Warren Buffett is, get out from underneath the rock. Number one. Number two, the other thing you should know about Warren Buffett is that in my opinion, he is one of the most, if not the most brilliant man on the face of the earth. Yes, he's not the richest. There's Bezos, there's Elon Musk, there's all that other stuff. Technically, they made their millions, billions, potentially at some point trillions, really off of a core product. But the reason I like Warren Buffett the same or even more is because he's a true business entrepreneur, in my opinion. The reason I say that is that he started with one company, he just started gobbling up or investing in other companies and then turning them around. Like, there's not much that he doesn't own on the planet outside of like Nike. Like, I think he owns a part of Coca-Cola, I think Black & Decker, Hathaway, and all this started, if I'm not mistaken, Berkshire Hathaway started as a rug company, as a carpet company. And now look at them now, they're one of the largest, if not the largest real estate companies on the planet. So I was fortunate enough to do some marketing for him for a company he had acquired out of California that he was looking to bring into, I think at that point he was looking to get into 13 different states. So that to kind of shine some light on what I've done off and on. And so I know that that's something that we're looking to do here in this coming year, is to really help local businesses here in San Antonio in regards to automating a lot of their marketing and their CRM and stuff like that, just because of the world that we live in with AI now. It's crazy and amazing some of the things that you can do if you just know how to really lean into it and use those resources that are at our fingertips. I know that there's a lot of doomsdayers that saw Terminator back in the 80s and they're like, the machines are going to take over. Like, yeah, they might take over, but for now it's going to make my life easier. So let's go ahead and do that. So I know we've also looked at, we've started talking about trying to do some storage units here at some point, maybe the second, third quarter of this year. I think for the single family side of what we do, we're probably going to just kind of put that on autopilot for the time being without necessarily bringing on more doors. I think we're looking at bigger things to just kind of expand the portfolio. I know we've had some serious talks in regards to businesses. And I think that's really going to be the Cody Sanchez method. I think between the business consulting and also helping with the marketing, you kind of get to peek behind the curtain of what a business is doing, where their weaknesses are, and the value add that we bring with all the experience that we have on how to just try to get that business over that hump that they're currently at. I don't see us starting any new businesses anytime soon, potentially ever, but buying into a business or getting a percentage of a business through the actual sweat equity that we can bring to the table, I think really has piqued our interest in potentially exploring that here for this year.
Yeah, lots of stuff. I mean, you've said a lot, but I think one of the things is just building on top of the foundation. And you brought up a good point. It's, getting the consulting side, the marketing side, understanding what the business is before even attempting to possibly get a profit share or earnings of it. So I'm excited for that. My biggest thing right now is really, like you mentioned, is the community and building that. So that is really just getting women together. My goal is 100 women to go through my coaching program for this year, which is a pretty aggressive goal, but I know that with the determination and really what we're looking to pour into people and my story, hopefully is going to inspire them and just, be able to build that legacy, because that's all I think, that's what we're trying to do. I think it's build a legacy, leave a legacy, inspire others. And I know that my calling is to serve and be able to really be that 1% to teach people through my mistakes, trials and tribulations, and success stories, that any ordinary person, Latina, can do this. And before you came into my world, it was a lot of my own, doing it by myself. Right. So I'm so appreciative that I have someone by my side that, really can tolerate me. You are.
I'm not even going to reply to that. I'm going to leave that right there.
You're on camera, so be careful. I'm just kidding. And to understand where my heart is, I think it's you know me better than most people. What my intention and where my heart is, and where I truly want to inspire and help people in their everyday journey, right? And if there's something that we know that maybe we've paid through a mastermind, or just I know you always say that mistake. What is it that you always say? I definitely know how to screw things up, or something like that.
Oh yes, I was going to say that while you were talking. So no, what I always say is, geez, for the last several years, I think anytime anybody sees anybody having any kind of traction above and beyond what they're doing, they just see them as a rock star. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people live off of hopes and dreams, and I don't say that as an insult. I'm that way too. I know that you're that way too. Not as much as me, because you're more analytical, but people lean in and like, oh man, like, well, how are you raising capital? How have you done this real estate? What is the secret sauce? I always say, There is no secret sauce. If I knew what that secret sauce was, we wouldn't be standing here having this conversation, because I would have 10x'd it already, and I would have bought my island and been sitting there with having Pepe bringing me a beer every 6 minutes or something. I don't know. But I always tell people, I don't know how to make you rich. I don't know. I can't tell you how to make $1 million overnight. First off, that's non-existent, but I can tell you how not to screw up. I can tell you how I failed and where I dropped the ball and how bad that hurt and how far back that set me back or how much money I lost. That I can't tell you. I can tell you what landmines to avoid, but I can't tell you what's going to work for you. I can tell you what's worked for me. Don't know if you're going to be able to replicate that. Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to how serious is somebody about their business? Because that's really what it is. Whether it's a full-time hustle or a part-time hustle, it's still a business. And however you treat what you're trying to do is how it's going to pay you. I would say that the only limitation where that might not be true is when you're working for somebody else. Because if you're on an hourly rate without any kind of commission, it doesn't matter whether you bust your butt every day or if you just show up and just collect a check. At the end of the week, it's going to be the same. But anything that you have full control of, the way you treat it, the consistency, that would be the key word, the consistency of what you do every day, whether they're RGAs or revenue generating activities, which means that activities are going to make you money, or if you're just sitting in front of a computer every day looking at emails, well, that might not actually make you money. But if you're serious about it, again, it's going to pay you that way. And again, when somebody sees that you're putting in the effort, they're willing to help. They're willing to contribute. They're willing to pour into you. But a lot of times, people just want to see that you have skin in, that you have skin in the game and are actually doing what you have to do to be moving your ball forward. And again, I know I've said this before and you always joke about it, but it's like, if I was looking for love relationship, why would I ask my uncle that's been divorced 7 times? That makes no sense. He's not going to show me how to be in a loving relationship. He's going to show me how to be divorced and single. So if you're looking for mentorships or you're looking to level up, look for somebody that's where you want to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and start trying to duplicate and mimicking what they're doing, what they've done, because they've obviously figured something out to try to get there. So if it took them 10 years to get there and you can get there again in a year and a half, 2 years, isn't that worth the investment in yourself? Because that's really what it is. It's an investment. It's not an expense. There's a big difference between an expense and an investment. If something's going to move your needle forward that much faster to try to get to where you're trying to get, isn't it worth it? I know that for me it is. You know, the very first time that I joined anything, my buy-in, and this is probably going to sound crazy to a lot of people, was $50,000 at a minimum. It could have gone way higher than that, but I didn't care. I figured it out within 7 days. Not having any money, I figured it out in 7 days. That led me to Thrive, which is the one that you were just talking about, which is how we met. I was fortunate enough to actually know the father of the gentleman that puts that group together. And as soon as I knew about that group, I called him up and I'm like, hey, I don't care what this costs. It could have been $1 million buy-in. But my whole mindset was, I need to be in this room because this room is all business owners. It's all entrepreneurs. It's all multi-millionaires. There was people in the room that are generating 300 million north a month. I think there might have been 1 or 2 billionaires in the room. I'm like, I don't care what it costs. I got to be in this room because by osmosis, if the closest 5 people to me is going to change my life, and that's the room I want to be in. I want to be surrounded by millionaires and billionaires. And he looked at me like, I'm like, are you sure? That's a little crazy. You don't even know what it costs. I'm like, I don't care. Just let me know what I got to do to get in this room. And it was just something that I had committed to myself. And again, I didn't see it as an expense. I saw it as an investment in myself. And whatever that dollar amount was, I was going to figure it out. As soon as I knew what that dollar amount was, guess what I did? I started trying to wholesale some properties, and I did, and I paid for it. So literally wholesaling a property got me into my next mastermind group. And it's just been a journey ever since then. The investment dollar amount since then, it's been a lot higher than the number that I mentioned earlier. And I don't say that to brag. I just say it so that you can see the level of commitment that I have in with myself. And I know you have a very similar story in regards to that as well, to try just to get to the next level and just hack time. Because that's the one commodity that we can't make more of, which is time.
Yeah, I think when we look at things, I mean, it stings no matter what the price point is. But the way that I look at it is, what is it going to provide me? Is it going to provide me a relationship? Is it going to provide me a new skill set? And how can I quickly turn around and make that as a return on my investment, my ROI? And that doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. I think with the relationships, means way more than just, how much money am I going to make? When I look at it, it's like, damn, that stings a little bit, right? The investment, but I truly know that I wouldn't be where I'm at today, the matter of 4 years in real estate, and knowing what I know now if I wasn't in the right rooms, right? And the other thing is that when you do get into the rooms, monetize the heck out of those rooms, because they're paying the same amount that you're paying and investing in yourself. So it's just a different thing. Like, you'll just realize people will, unless you're kind of like me, and I've been that way where it's hard for me to ask for help. But I have stretched and grown in the last few years to be able to say everybody needs help, right? And it's so crazy when you are adding value to others, and truly doing that, how many people, especially the people at the top, really want to help you, because everyone starts somewhere, right? And so that's the way that we look at when we're looking at different groups and mentorships and masterminds to get part of. It's, what am I going to gain out of it? And is it right now what I need in my season, right? Like Cody Sanchez just had an event this past weekend, and we just didn't turn it on. We didn't go to the event because it's not where we're at today. Are we looking to buy businesses? 100%, but it's not what we're looking at today. Today, right now, it's really, like you mentioned, really figuring out what we're doing with our residential real estate, figuring out, how are we going to attract people for your marketing agency, and me, how am I going to grow my coaching business, and how are we going to be able to do that? Doesn't mean in 6 months we can't revisit that. I know she'll still be around, and she'll be continuing to still pour into people, and or we may find somebody else that relates to us or drives with us. But I want to go ahead and start to wrap this up. And yeah, this is kind of our first introduction, guys. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to talk about different things. We're going to talk about relationships. We'll talk about why Vin and I are in 2 different offices, because a lot of people ask that all the time.
Guys, wait a minute. Weren't you guys sitting next to each other before?
Yeah.
Again, maybe you didn't hear the part where we said business and personal relationships. So I'm just going to say, maybe somebody started getting a little choked out or strangled out at some point, so we had to separate it.
I think it's more of we're very passionate on the phone, so we couldn't talk on the phones at the same time, so we had to be a little bit more productive. And then it kind of just evolved to having our own space, which, again, it's okay when you're working together, right? If you're together all the time and you're working together, it's okay to be able to have some space. And we'll get all into that later and so forth, but I think the biggest thing for us is, or for me at least, is I want to do this more consistent. I want to get to know, there'll be some fun stuff going on. I want to get to know more things about you, Vin, and how, I don't know, maybe we'll get some guest speakers on here that are entrepreneurs as well, and power couples. I know that this will probably help us grow and stretch more than we could ever imagine. In addition, hopefully helping others, with their stories. So, I think that's it. Any last words that you have?
I'm still focusing on, you want to try to get to know me better. I'm like, what else could you possibly know?
You're very secretive sometimes. There's sometimes you tell stories and I'm like, what? It's good. I get to know you a little bit better every single day. So.
Yeah, I just learned something about you today.
What?
You went to a conference dressed like a hoochie.
You don't have proof of that. But anyway, all right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please click and like and subscribe. Send to others. We're going to have some good, bad, and ugly, I'm sure, through this journey. We'll probably have some emotional days and not. I really want to be truthful and be honest on here. and to really give you guys the unedited version of how to get through life as an entrepreneur, because it's not always fun. And then also how to be able to get through life from our eyes of relationships and so forth. So,
And it's not always fun.
It's not always fun, but we have some fun moments.
Oh, we have a lot of fun moments, but yes, it's like everything in life. You have to take the good with the bad. You know, being an entrepreneur, it's not always great. Relationships, not always great. Bring those together, it's not always great, but the highs are absolutely worth it, in my opinion, on both sides of it. So for me, for us, I'm throwing you into it. I think it's the trifecta and it works, but I think it's a very rare thing to find somebody that not only can keep up with you, but also make you a better person. And for me, you, Michelle, are 100% do that for me. So you are a very unique individual in my eyes in so many ways. And I appreciate you and everything that you do, not only for the business, but also for our relationship, and also for making me want to be a better person and a better man, not just for me, but for the relationship, but for the world as a whole. So you definitely keep me on my feet, and keep me motivated, even when it's hard.
Awesome. Well, we will talk about the same thing how you get me out of my fear and make me do things I don't want to do that are very uncomfortable.
I have an extra 30 seconds. If no, just
Well, I wouldn't be in Raising Capital if it wasn't for you. So thank you so much. Well, guys, we're going to end this now. I hope that was on a good note. We are going to come to you every single week. I think we're going to probably put this out on YouTube and out on our podcast as well. And again, if there's are things that you guys want to learn, go visit our website. Let's start giving us some comments and questions, and we'd love to be able to answer those for you the best that we can. And like always, stay safe, and I hope that Vin and I could be able to inspire you with our story to keep going and building your legacy. Bye for now.
Thank you guys. Bye.